Hey everyone, CWD Music here. I am CWD, and this is going to be my top 50 albums of 2018 list. I know it's late. I know it's already halfway through January by this point. Probably a little later, depending on when this gets uploaded. I know. I know. I do want to apologize for the severe lack in content for the channel. I know I've said like a million times. Actually, let me take this Cabela's hoodie off. It's warm in here. I know I've apologized in the past, and I said I'm gonna get back in the gear of things. I have an idea. I've got a plan. Hopefully, this works out this time, and I'm not gonna keep screwing up and all that. I do want to make a video about the plans I've got for the channel, but that's gonna be in the future. Just for a brief synopsis, I'm gonna just say I'm going to try to limit myself to about 2 to 3 videos a week, and there's not going to be a whole lot in terms of reviews and all that, but I will definitely try to make something of that nature happen eventually. We'll see. I got my fingers crossed. So on that note, let's get started. Now, I'm going to do something different for my albums of the year list this year. Instead of just like going by giving like a brief like summary or a brief little detail about these records, I'm just gonna be very negative about all of them. Because this year's been polarizing. This year has not been definitive. This year has been, like, insane and weird for music. There hasn't really been a definitive answer as to what was the best album of the year. It's not like the last 3 or 4 years or so where, in my mind, I could tell, like, one album was the greatest, or a few albums in a collective were the greatest. Instead, it just kind of narrowed it down to what I ended up just preferring the most, and that kind of irritates and upset me to a certain degree. But I might go on a different rant or video about that. For this list, I'm going to have like a negative comment or something about all of them. It's weird, I know, but I'm just trying to do something different. They're all not going to be funny. Probably none of them are going to be funny, but this is going to be how I'm going to do it because I just want to breeze through the list. I don't want to like end up with a big 40-minute video. I gotta edit every single year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this on the road then. I don't know what's worse, the storm the album is based on or the actual music. This album is so vapid and shallow, it should have been renamed Waiting. The writing on this album is about as aimless and lost as somebody that's suffering from amnesia. So I mean, I guess the concept is deeper than I previously thought. The album's concept of touching down on depression and anxiety does so by making you depressed as shit. Now that's what I call immersion. Weren't these guys on hiatus because they wanted to adventure out and branch out and improve as songwriters and musicians? Because it just kind of sounds like they need to do that again. You can basically get the same experience this album gives you by just watching Goosebumps on DMT. It saves you about roughly 10-20 minutes as well. Her best album today basically just sounds like if Bjork sold out. The songs on this album need to be brief because a whole double album of millennial desperation just sounds like the worst thing imaginable. The songs all sound the same, so maybe it was better off being played all at once, because you'll get the same experience versus getting it all done in 5 minutes versus getting it done in 50 minutes. Yeah, this is basically just the IDM equivalent of a bad cock tease. Oh shit, the fucking pop punks discovered Radiohead. I wonder what language the word iridescence translates to Saturation 4 and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Man, these indie hopheads like to praise the shit out of this album and eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner as if there's literally no other FMC out there that's rapping about deep shit too. I mean, it's just not that great. This album is just about as condescending and patronizing as its title. Well, since I wanted an interesting and good album, then I guess it's spot on. I did not get what I want. Thanks, daughters. If you ever wonder why Matt Pike's vocals are so grating and gurgling, it's because he's been spending the past decade and a half regurgitating the same sound High on Fire has had for the past 15 years or so. When you look at the fact that Bjork put out an album about a breakup, and then a year later David Longstreet put out an album about a breakup as Dirty Projectors, and then Bjork puts out a record about being in love and all that, loving again, And then David Longstreet does that the same with Dirty Projectors the next year. You can't help but think that at this point he's out of ideas and just follows along with whatever Bjork's doing nowadays. That just tells you what kind of artist he is. Mitski's idea of artistic progression is to go from a lo-fi sound that reminds me a lot of somebody trying to sound like Chelsea Wolfe to a more refined, better produced sound that reminds me of somebody trying to sound like St. Vincent. Yeah, this album sounds phenomenal if you just never heard anybody rap on Bandcamp or Soundcloud. Like if you just avoided the internet altogether, then this album just will blow your mind. Woo, whoever gave Julian Casablancas this much artistic freedom needs to swiftly just take it away now. Just swipe it away from him, because he's not doing anything that's great with it right now. He's kind of abusing that privilege. Dr. Dre himself couldn't save how incohesive this album ended up being, and honestly, that's kind of a testament to how Anderson .Paak is as an artist, so I mean, it got that accomplished. You can basically get the same experience this album gives you by just stuffing yourself inside of an amplifier that just happens to be on. Yeah, nothing might have hurt, but I didn't really feel much of anything listening to this record, period, so I mean, what gives? I can't really listen to this record without imagining some guy in his 40s on the dark web trying to hack into his neighbor's desktop because his kids won't just get off his lawn or something. I just can't get that image out of my head. It's alright and all, but why are the actual people that made this album and are rapping on this album the least interesting thing about it? Yeah, when they talk about how an artist can be overindulgent with a record and it ended up sounding like a mess, they talk about albums like this. For the 20th time, you can't call an album trippy just because you did a bunch of LSD making it. That's not how that works. There's a whole musical component that goes in with it. Yeah, the cave they made this album in probably distressed a lot of endangered species that might have been inside it, and it probably wasn't even worth it, like, at all. Like, what the shit? There's no joy to be had in listening to this record, so how am I supposed to find the strength to resist anything? Yeah, the album cover looks like a still frame of an aneurysm I had when I was listening to this record. Folktronica for Dummies, yeah! This album neither puts me in the mood nor does it make me hungry, so I'm not sure what it was set out to accomplish, period. I feel like I can understand Beach House as a band a lot better if I was somebody that was just constantly living inside of a conch shell or just had 2 conch shells over my ears the entire time. Because that's basically what every Beach House record sounds like. If you just take, like, an ethereal synth chord and sang falsetto over it, then you've basically done a majority of this record. Listening to this album sounds like you're in the truck with your redneck cousin with the windows down, and while he's blasting classic radio, he just spends the entire time going, I don't know, man. I don't know about these cellular devices nowadays. I don't know about them. I think everything was just a lot better if we just go to a payphone. That's all I'm saying. This album is just a nice, profound testament that he just absolutely has no idea what kind of artist he wants to be 20 whole years into the game already. Yeah, some guy just listened to Godspeed You Black Emperor one day and also liked ISIS and other sludge metal bands like that, and he was like, huh, nobody's really done post-metal before, have they? I'm gonna make it happen. Look, Nicholas Jar, buddy, listen. Just because you made mediocre music doesn't mean you should feel ashamed of it by changing your name. Look, this is some shit that Richard D. James does. Just be you, and everything will be fine. Yeah, this is their first album in about a decade and a half, and it was released on Third Man Records. And that's the extent of anything interesting about it. It's just a few chords over the course of, like, almost an hour. That's just doom metal in a nutshell. Wow, a 2.5 hour long jazz record! No one's done that before! Yeah, this album is basically 90% drugs, 10% fuck Drake, and 0% great. Om nom 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 Satan! And yeah, you basically heard the album now. Yeah, Zoe couldn't have been bothered to actually make a whole album, so he just put together 3 EPs instead. So, I mean, at least he was conceptual about it. Yeah, this is the audio equivalent to walking into Hard Rock Cafe and then sitting there waiting on a table to be ready in about an hour and a half. Yeah, the fact that Phil Elverum is now happily married to Michelle Williams, I believe it is, basically makes listening to this album feel redundant to me. Like, he better not do this shit again. Yeah, this album is weirdly tame for how vulgar it tries to be. She needs to go ahead and go to Prince's grave and apologize to him at once. Like right now. It's like, stop what you're doing, Janelle. Go do this. The quantity of rap songs is basically understated with this record, and I kind of feel like that's how much like effort he put into making it. Just kind of oversimplifying how many rap songs ended up being on the album. Basically, if you're someone that thinks some is like 13, you know. Oh great, more drained nihilism from the man himself. Yes. If this is supposed to be a tribute to the theme park of the same name that closed in Houston late years ago, then it probably wasn't missed that much. This album is proof that you should feel no shame in taking a record that was shitty because of your restraints with equipment and time and all that, and then remaking it to be shitty on your own terms. Don't let any of that ever stop you. So yeah, those are my favorite albums of 2018. I did have my gripes with how inconsistent and just vague 2018 was in terms of album releases, but still, I ended up with at least 50 records, actually more than 50 records. I just didn't mention the honorable mentions in this video. I might in a later video or something, or just in passing I'll be like, yeah, this record was great or whatever. But still, like I said, I ended up with 50 records that I love, and I'm glad I was able to get this video done. CW Music here, signing off.